I'm just appointed a director of this museum of Asian art, what is called Oriental art, and it happened after 30 years of living, actually, not in Europe, but in Asia. I'm a sinologist, and I've been living in China and Southeast Asia for the last 30 years. And it's very interesting to come here and to really feel as a man in between, and I see this new sort of Central Asian coinage, this idea of being together, which is so different than the perspective I can have from East Asia, looking at the rest of the world, and of course from Europe to the Central Asia and Asia itself. It really helps me to think and to reshape paradigms, of what, as a director now of a museum having a specific Asian collection, can do in an environment like Italy, but not a capital of Italy, but in a sort of very cultural, very interesting city as Turin is, which is a city very close to Milan, but still, is a very small center, rich in collections, rich in also actually Islamic collections, private ones. But so one of the considerations I wanted to share with you is what is the role of a museum, especially an Asian museum in Europe now. And one of the things that, one of the intuition that I had with my team is actually to work really with the collection. So what the collection tell us, why are they coming together, especially in a small museum but very rich. The MAO Museum has around 3,500 objects, display around 2,000 something, in an old building from the 18th century. Already this kind of connection between the objects in the space and the space itself creates narratives, creates ways of interpreting eventually the work. And that for me is something that is really at the center of the work that I want to do in the museum. So we talk about objects, but most of the collection I have in the museum are actually religious or ritual objects. So somehow they are subjects, they have and they exist in the activation, in the rituality, in the performativity of the objects. If you think about the manuscript, which has been a feast to my eyes, in the last 2 days to listen to you guys, the manuscript has a voice, is meant to be read, is meant to be mumbled, You can feel that when you turn the pages, if you have, if you're lucky enough to have beautiful manuscripts and, the possibility of touching them. The color, the light of the golden, it makes the objects alive. And that is something that I would like to really bring into the consideration, of everything that all this conference is talking about, which is making stories, through the objects that that we display around, that we connect. And I really would like, people working in museum to really just step back a bit and think about what they have in hands. So in all these stories, and this is also something that keeps on turning, is really about hybridity, and how Central Asia is the place where hybridity started. It's not only a passage, as Professor Starr was saying, it's really a place, of blossoming of things, and then that was also something that contaminated, the rest of the world, and it's beautiful to see. So one of the things that to go back, and then I have a little video I want to show you. I didn't expect to show, but I think it's very pertinent to what we are talking here. Is that we talk about tradition, and we've been talking about objects, which somehow are not only objects, but they really have a sort of energy within itself, which is a spiritual and religious, and we need to dare to say that it's religious spirit. And this is tradition, but what is tradition now? How we can bring the tradition into innovation. We always talk about the innovation, but then how are we going to bring that in? And it's interesting to see how, best practices are always about, going into the past, going to the roots, but then interpret them into what is now. Don't forget that whatever we've been seeing is actually, it has a contemporary feeling to that. It was at once, at one point of its existence, a contemporary object. And I think that this is also a very important thing to consider. So how we connect what we do to the contemporary, and which is a contemporary tense, for the now. And museums have the capacity of becoming powerhouses for that. And I've been seeing now, for instance, in MAO, I just started, but I'm inviting conservators, curators, contemporary artists, artisans, to create narratives into the objects that we are displayed. And it's fantastic to see, for instance, my conservator of Gandhara art, to work with a contemporary artist and to create works together. And this is such an emotional bond and the way that the artist, explains to the conservator what they see, and vice versa, how the conservator bring, science into the activation of that objects is absolutely stunning. And you can see the emotion in that, So how we can make museums emotional situations and places. So there are many things that we can say about that, and many activities and many interferences, but one of the things that I think that brings people together are questions. So never to think about creating things that are complete, but actually go into connections of small, very deep situations that they actually can explain the complexity. And to do so, I want to show you now a little trailer of a video that actually is a film that we made between India and Italy on this very, very theme. It's like how, the tradition of two countries, all the craftsmanship, all the artistic tradition comes into life through the eyes of contemporary artists and artists. Where are the complexity? What actually, can be interesting to see? So the film will be displayed in Venice Biennale in the Festival of Cinema in 1 month. So this is only a trailer of 3 minutes. But I wanted to share with you so that you can see a bit how distances actually can become communalities, and how, what we are doing here actually can have a sort of powerful, power of connecting complexity and stating hybridity as really a very important, cultural value that I think that we need to cherish.